Welcome back to Binge Moto. In this episode, we're joined by the multi-talented Tom Blizzard, actor, singer, and vintage motorcycle enthusiast with a serious knack for bringing old machines back to life. Whether he's tuning up a classic bike or repairing a vintage record player, Tom reminds us there's real value in restoring what others might throw away. All right, so I'd like to welcome to Binge Moto, Tom Blizzard. How you doing, Tom?
Hey, Brian, I'm great. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. We're doing a podcast here on a Saturday afternoon. It's a good way to spend a day.
The day before Father's Day.
That's right. Yeah, if you're watching this, it probably won't come out till next week. But
Yeah.
Happy Father's Day. Actually, I got a mug here that arrived in the mail from my son.
Oh, very
He sent-
cool.
yeah, it's got the Binge Moto logo on it.
That's new.
So, yeah, it's nice. He's always thinking about stuff like that. So, hats off to you, Wesley, for.
I have this glass that I got at a Chinese restaurant, and they were giving them away. So,
That's cool. That's cool. So where are you? Where are you, Tom? Where are you from?
well, originally I'm from Mobile, Alabama.
Yep.
Don't tell anybody.
Okay.
And then I've been around a little bit here and there, and now for the last 10 years, a little more, I've lived in Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
Tennessee. Oh, my family's
right
from
smack
Tennessee.
dab in the middle.
Yep. Yeah, my mom's family's from Crossville.
Oh, okay. I was literally in Crossville yesterday or the day before.
Yeah, I went there a lot during the summers as a kid. Yeah.
It's hot.
Yeah.
Very hot.
Yeah.
And I'm just south of Nashville.
Oh, nice. Well, that's good.
No, just means traffic is really bad.
So we actually connected through a mutual friend, Brandon Butts, who's
Yes.
from the Action Motorcycles channel. And you guys, I believe you met at the Motorcyclist Map Rally in West
Yes,
Virginia.
that's right.
Yeah.
And I met, Brandon was there. I guess we were all there just to have fun. And Brandon was there taking some videos and getting content for his channel and
Yep.
riding with his dad. And
Which is very cool. Yeah.
Yes. Oh man, those guys are great. I had a blast with them. The first day of the rally, I just rode by myself, and because the weather, and I'm
I
glad
heard
I
it was
did.
pretty bad. Yeah.
It was so bad, right where we were in West Virginia. And I looked at the weather, and I was like, I like checking off places on the map. So I was like, we're not that far from Maryland. We're not that far from Pennsylvania. So I just rode north, and it was beautiful, sunny, blue skies. And I didn't get rained on until about 60 miles from where we were staying on the way back.
Back at Mingo.
Yeah, back in Mingo.
So what kind of bike are you on now?
I am on, and don't laugh, I love it.
Okay.
I'm on a 1982 Suzuki GS 550L.
All right,
Just
that's
a very, very vintage bike.
that's very it's a little bit of kismet because I think I sent you a message. My very first bike ever back in, I think I bought it in 1988 was a
Right.
1980, I think it was an 81 Suzuki GS 650E.
Yeah.
So very similar bike.
Was that the shaft drive?
I think it was a chain drive, but honestly,
Yeah.
back then I didn't know crap about bikes.
Right.
I think I went into the store and it was cheap and I bought it, like.
That's how I ended up with one of these. I have two of them now, but of the same bike.
Right. Very, very cool. So you're a vintage guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everything around me is old except for my wife, and she's a little younger than me, but everything else is vintage in my life, and figured why not go with the bikes as well.
Right. But you have something I didn't have back then, which is the ability to fix it yourself.
Well, yeah, I'm very mechanically inclined. I mean, that's my whole life has been, both a blessing and a curse. And of course, you know my whole story, but like my business now is repairing record players,
Right.
vintage record players.
turntables.
And they're very mechanical little machines,
Yeah. Yeah. They got a revival now, right? Like,
Well, yes, but I don't even want to say now because it's been going on for a long time. I mean,
but I mean, like the kids, like my best friend's son, who's 23,
Yeah.
is super into vinyl. Like I can see behind you, you've got a bunch of vinyl.
oh yeah, and the vintage stereo and the record player and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the repairs that I do, I would say, are nostalgia for people. it's something they grew up with or something that belonged to a relative or a friend or something. But you're right. Now I'm seeing a lot of younger guys and gals coming in with equipment that isn't nostalgia. They picked it up because they thought it was really cool and they want to play their vinyl on this old record player, on this old stereo. So,
Right. I actually have I picked up, like during COVID, I picked up a vintage, like Sears mid-century
console?
record console. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the record player in it, but it had the speakers in it. And what I did is it had the top that opens, it looks like the front are fake cabinet doors, but the top opens. And what I did is I turned it into a bar. I put a bunch of bottles in there.
A lot of folks do that. They're great.
And then I went to the back. I took the back off of it and I took out those old speakers, which were actually quite large.
Yes.
And I put a set of Bluetooth speakers in there, like bookshelf speakers, basically. And now I can, like, from my phone, I can play the music and it comes out of there. And it's got nice baffling. It's all probably asbestos or whatever, but it's got nice baffling in there, so all the sound comes out the front. It's really nice.
I won't tell anybody you ruined another console. I do a lot of console repairs, by the way. I'm one of the only guys. So,
well, it didn't have the player in it when I bought it. It did have like the shelves in there to put the records, but there was no player. So,
well, the trick is, you said it was a Sears.
Yeah.
And this is so far off of motorcycles, it's not funny, but
that's the way it goes.
They made, they didn't make their own stuff at that point anyway. They would rebrand stuff, but their record players were just terrible. I mean, they worked until they didn't, and they are such a pain to make right when you're repairing them. I hate working on those. So somebody probably did you a favor.
Probably. Yeah. So I hear you're quite the actor singer. Is that true?
I don't know about quite, but
I looked you up on IMDb. You got some credits on there.
Oh yeah. Well, I've done a few things. I've done some movies and some TV shows, and a lot of stuff's not on there. Industrials and commercials and things that just don't get listed on IMDb, and that's fine. They pay.
That's right. That's right.
I haven't done it since the pandemic started, and pretty much full stop shut down all of the entertainment industry, especially here in Nashville. I mean, it was just closed.
Right.
And life has happened since then. But literally, was it yesterday or today? I think it was yesterday. I was in communication with my agent, who I haven't talked to in probably 2 years, since my wreck, at least 3 years. And so, I'm back on their roster now as of this week. So maybe I'll get some more work.
Congratulations. That sounds it's great. Yeah.
And for the singing, that's the acting stuff. The singing thing is, man, that's always been a struggle because of what I sing. Everybody loves it and nobody wants to pay for it. So
right. Well,
that big band stuff is expensive to produce.
I wish I could sing. The only thing I'll do at karaoke, I'm wearing a Johnny Cash t-shirt here.
I saw that.
I will attempt Johnny Cash because he's not really known for his vocal talent. It's more of the songwriting.
You should do Bob Dylan.
Yeah. You can't make that any worse.
No. He was a songwriter that happened to sing a little bit. So
a little bit. Yeah. Have you seen the documentary? Not documentary. The movie with Bob Dylan, the one that came out last year.
No, I have not yet. And again, life happens, but it's on my list because. Did you talk about that in a podcast recently?
No, I haven't talked about it. No.
One of the podcasts I follow, I can't remember, they were talking about it. It just made me want to see it more. I mean, it just sounds like a really good movie.
Yeah, it does have Johnny Cash in it, though.
Yeah.
I guess they were friends.
I know a couple of folks in that movie, and I know it well. I know a lot of folks, but I auditioned for the part of Johnny Cash. No, it wasn't. Hank Williams. It was
okay.
Hank Williams. They were doing a Hank Williams biography 10 or 12 years ago. I obviously didn't get it, but I did get the audition.
Yeah. That's cool. Very cool.
I'm a terrible guitar player though. So.
Oh, you are?
Oh yeah. I'm a singer.
Yeah. Well, I can see you got a guitar behind you there.
An extra.
Yeah. I can't.
Oh yeah.
I can't play any instruments or sing. So you're two up on me for sure.
You just can't do them well.
Well, it's true. Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's funny because both my kids were in band, and they both can, one's a drummer, the other one, clarinet and all that stuff. So they have some musical ability, but I have none. Yeah.
Well, they got it from somewhere. You haven't had the chance to hone it.
That's right. That's
So,
right.
I was
That's
a
what I
band. I
keep.
played trumpet. So
That's what I keep telling myself. Yeah. Yeah.
it's
So,
never too late
huh?
to learn.
That's true.
When
That's
did you
true.
start writing? Like again, like you said, like 8 years ago.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, I took a long break, while the kids were growing up, and like 7, 8 years ago, So it actually brings me to a motorcycle question. So, I know you got vintage bikes now, but what kind of a rider do you consider yourself? Are you like a cruiser guy? Or you just always been retro vintage bikes?
So
Do you like to do cross country traveling or
yeah,
just
but
coffee shop runs? What do you
I'll
do?
do that on my. I'll do the cross country thing on the 550. Do everything on it.
Okay.
Yeah. So my wife says I should be a product tester because I'm going to use whatever it is. I'm going to use it just as hard as it should be used, and if it can withstand me, then it's a great product. Which is why I like the Suzuki stuff. But that's how I ride that bike. I mean, if you looked at any of my stuff online, you probably saw pictures of the thing in a river, and I went to a BMW rally maybe a month or so before the motorcyclist in Mingo.
Yeah.
That one is in Virginia, and it's not an off-road bike, but if it can at all handle it,
You'll
I can
give it a
handle it.
try.
I'm
Yeah.
going to give it a try. And I mean, it's always been kind of my idea that the thing was a machine made to do a thing, and you just use it to do that thing. I
Yeah.
bought
I'm
a
not sure.
1958 Edsel out of a field in Indiana and drove it to Mobile.
Wow.
And the guy's like, "You're not going to drive that thing, are you?" I'm like, "No, man. We got a trailer back in Indianapolis." I didn't have a trailer. But, it was a machine, and as old as it was, it just did what that machine was made to do. So,
Yeah.
motorcycle.
So I'm not sure. We talked about it quite a bit in the show, but big fan of the Long Way series with Ewan McGregor. Have you seen this season? Because they're actually riding vintage bikes this year.
I have not.
So you might want to check this season out, just because they're literally on 50-year-old Moto Guzzi and BMW, and they're riding all over Europe and thousands of miles and putting it to the test.
I think a dream of mine, and financially, there's just a billion reasons this probably won't happen, but I would love to take one of my 43-year-old bikes to Europe, maybe South America somewhere, and do some of those rides. I mean, obviously, it's not a hardcore. I couldn't do things that you could do on a GS. Well, it is a GS. It's a different kind of GS.
Different GS.
But, I think it would be fun. Just to see what it would do. It was good enough 43 years ago. Why not now?
Yeah. So you briefly mentioned a moment ago that you had a pretty bad crash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a couple.
A couple?
But,
yeah. I mean, honestly, it's one of those things you hear the saying all the time. People say it's not if, but when you're going to crash.
Right.
And I literally, I had never crashed until like back in March. So yeah, so I had never crashed before, but back in March I had as minor of a crash that you could have. A low side, hit some black ice, and virtually no damage to the bike and no damage to me. And as a matter of fact, it almost made me like I wasn't happy I crashed, obviously, but crashing and then having nothing happen to me, it did kind of make me feel like, well, I got that out of my system,
Yeah, now you're not waiting for it to happen.
Right.
So
right.
now you're in that second group.
You had a much more serious crash.
I did. I had actually a buddy of mine, Josh, and I had just gone on kind of a fall trip, and we stayed at an Airbnb that we lovingly call a murder trailer, because in the backwoods of Kentucky.
Yeah.
And everything was great. We had a good time, and we made it back, and my tires were worn out. So I put new tires on it on Wednesday night. Thursday morning, I got up before I went to work. I was going to just ride it around the neighborhood and make sure, everything was good. So the next time I hopped on the bike, I could go. And I literally made it 2-3 turns in my neighborhood, 0.7 miles from my house, and 18-year-old girl. I don't remember it. A couple of people saw it. 18-year-old girl pulled out and hit me, and broke 10 ribs, I have 3 titanium plates on the ribs, and it separated my shoulder really bad. And the weirdest thing, it messed my thumb up, this joint in my thumb, and I think that's probably, other than the rib stuff, that's going to be the most impactful thing as time goes on, because
Long term, yeah.
this is I'm right-handed, so this is my left hand. This is the one I use for, like, brute mutt strength, and I'm losing some of that now as this arthritis just gets worse and worse. I'll send you the X-ray.
Oh, okay.
It's
yeah, we'll
bad.
throw it up on the screen here. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't even have to be a doctor to go, yeah, that's not right. So
So after the crash, were you like immediately like, I can't wait to get back on the bike, or were you like apprehensive, or?
I could not wait to get back on. For one, it's that whole, you've got to get back on the horse if you get thrown,
Right.
because you really, your mind does stuff to psych you out. And yeah, it was uncomfortable the first couple times I rode, and a couple of situations after that reminded me of this or that. It was uncomfortable, but that's why you have to get back on the bike. But it was a while before I could. I mean, I was damaged for quite some time, but the motorcycle community and that classic Suzuki GS community were great, because I'm on groups online and such. And you probably saw the thing I wrote. I think I sent it to you with a bunch of pictures.
Yep.
And I had a guy in Michigan. I said, well, I've got one of these bikes. It needs some work, and I can't give it to you, but I can certainly let you have it for a really good price. And literally, I had like surgery on this hand and pins and everything. And the day after that came off, I was in my car with the trailer heading to Michigan to pick up that bike. And because I needed to have one in the garage.
Right.
I don't guess I needed it. A lot of things we think we need that we don't. But for my mental health, I needed to have that out there. And having it to work on, and it was winter, and having that out there to work on as I was getting better, I don't know, made me feel, hopeful, because it was a big deal. That was a defining moment when that wreck happened, because I mean, they called the helicopter. Thankfully, the helicopter didn't have to come, because I don't have that kind of money. But
Yeah, and if you're going to take a helicopter ride, you want to remember it.
right, yes.
Yeah, I've got this $10,000 helicopter ride, and I didn't get to experience any of it. Whatever. Yeah.
No, it's probably, the stories I've heard are more like $50,000, $60,000, $70,000.
Woof. No, does insurance not cover that at all, or?
Nope.
Oh my God.
No.
Yeah.
I didn't have insurance anyway at the time.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was devastating, but we're still here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you just take it one day at a time, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And actually, I was talking about the community and another motorcycle came available again in Michigan. I mean, it was probably 30 miles from the Canadian border, and not like Detroit. I mean, like North Michigan.
Right.
And I rode up there and got that, and that's how I have 2 of them out there now. So, which is good, because get back to the motorcycle stuff. If you ride vintage motorcycles like that,
you need parts.
You can't go to the Suzuki dealership and buy a lot of that stuff. And of course, with the internet, you can find it, but it's a lot easier when when you can be your own parts house.
Yeah. There's a local store here. Well, they're a nationwide dealer, called Niche Cycles.
Mm-hmm.
And they do like a monthly, or they used to do like a monthly coffee and bike day kind of thing.
I don't think we have one here, but I'm aware of it.
Yeah. But they make the parts for vintage bikes, like carburetors and all that kind of stuff, and they refurbish things. So it's pretty cool.
The coolest place, now I can't say that I've bought from them a few times, but it's in the Netherlands, and it's Consolidated Motor Spares. So it's CMSNL.com, Consolidated Motor Spares Netherlands.com. And they've been, first off, they have probably new bikes too. I mean, but for me, they have all of the parts, fish and everything that's broken down, the exploded diagrams and all the part numbers. And you can find that in other places. That's no
Right.
problem. But I had an experience recently where I was looking for something that was mislabeled on everybody's parts fish, or on the online one. And I assume they probably all came from the same place. And I messaged a couple of different places, trying to get the right part number so I could order the right thing. It was just a spark plug cap. And when I messaged those guys, when I sent them a message, I heard back within the day that yeah, you're right. The number was wrong from the original parts fish. So we went back and looked at it, and we've corrected it online, and this is the number you need to order. And it's like, wow, you just don't get that kind of customer service, especially when you're dealing with old stuff. So
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I'm not paid by them to endorse them, but I'm certainly going to give them a
plug for sure.
A plug for sure.
Yeah. You think there's a mental benefit of riding a motorcycle, right? It's not just it's fun, but it also helps clear your head, take all the stress away from your life, because
absolutely
you're focused, right? You have to focus on what you're doing. Your mind can't wander too much. I mean, it can when you're on the highway or whatever, but
well, it's called flow state, and you get into a flow state, and it's a hyper focus thing. But everything that's required for that hyper focus is doing it, which frees up the rest of your mind to think and create and work out problems or look at the sky or whatever it is. And it's definitely, it's the sort of thing you achieve with actual, in an office therapy, except that you're out on the road. You have to be careful, but you're out on the road.
Right. Because you are at one time pretty much using your entire body also to control the bike, unlike a car where you're
right.
you can pretty much hit the cruise control in a car. Nowadays, they even steer for you. So, I mean, you're not doing
right.
anything. But on the bike, like, you're steering you're leaning, you're using the handlebars, you got the clutch on one hand, most bikes, and the brake on your foot and in your hand, and you get shifting gears with the other. And then you're constantly scanning traffic to make sure some car's not going to pull out in front of you, some deer's not going to run onto the road, or a turtle, or even like, you'll just be following behind a car and they'll run over something on the road, and then all of a sudden it just appears in front of you, and you have to make that decision. Now, am I going to run over it, or am I going to try and avoid it? So there's always a constant input and then a constant feedback where you're having to make these decisions, these little micro decisions, one after another.
It is amazing to me that we can do all of that. We process all of it. It's such a fast scale. And there's a lot of stuff to process. And I guess that's sort of how our brains are designed anyway. We take in all this information, and then, our brain sorts it out into things we need to know and things we don't need to know, because just looking at the stuff in front of me that you can't see, my screen and the microphone, there's just too much for me to process. So my brain cuts all of that out, and I'm just seeing you. And the same thing is that way on the motorcycle. It just cuts out all the other crap and just focuses on those most important things.
Wow. I think I need to get my wife on a podcast. She's just focus on me just for a minute.
Well, maybe you need some impending danger to, so you can do that.
Yeah. And not only are you looking at all those inputs and dealing with them, and at the same time, you could have Lizzo playing in your headphones on your bike, and you're singing along, what other thing can you do all those things at once and still remember the lyrics to some crazy song? Or
it's the ultimate compartmentalization.
Yeah.
You just don't even know that you're doing all of those things. So I love it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I do it on a 43-year-old motorcycle. I don't have all the fancy, rain mode and I don't even know all the extra stuff, you know.
Oh, they've got blind spot detection now, and front and rear radar. You can cruise control and adaptive cruise and all that.
I have a throttle lock.
Yeah.
it's a little dangerous, but I only use it on the highway. So
Yeah, even the throttle lock though are very frustrating because the second you start going up a hill or
oh
whatever,
yeah,
it's
then
like,
you slow down,
"Grrr,"
and
yeah,
on the other side you're doing like 90.
yeah,
Well,
right,
not 90, but you know what I'm saying.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
But
had a
it's
throttle
a
lock before.
tool. I use them. I use it a little bit when I'm just on a straight. I try not to be on too many straights. Even if I'm going, I rode out to, so I'm in Murfreesboro, and I rode out to Poplar. It's either Poplar or Popular. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Missouri for the eclipse.
Oh,
It's
the
one of the
eclipse.
simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the sun and the earth. Yeah, sun and the moon.
Okay.
Yeah. So I rode out to Missouri to see the eclipse. And that was kind of a long ride from here
Yeah.
for a little bike. And so, yeah, the little throttle lock gets used pretty good. That was a great ride too.
I put a throttle lock on my Bonneville T120 that I had a few years back, and it was okay. It's just good enough to like rest your hand and get that
Yeah,
muscle.
that's all it's
Yeah,
for.
yeah. But I got back from that long trip and I went right to the dealership and I'm like, how much is it to put a cruise control? Because
An
that
actual cruise control.
yeah, it was because all they had to do was change out the little body on the handlebar
Throttle.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, they added a button to it basically because it was already built into the system. They just needed to add the button. So
Wow.
yeah, $500, but it was worth it though and it wasn't like it didn't have the up down button like modern cruise controls do. It was literally just on or off. But still, just being able to turn on and stay consistent speed it was worth it.
Well, that's interesting that the fact that you were able to do that is obviously the benefit of riding something that's newer.
Right.
You can go to the dealer.
Modern classic.
But I'm not always in a position to be able to go to the dealer.
Right.
If I can't, but if I had something broken, I wouldn't necessarily be in the position to take my bike to the dealer. So I end up doing all that work myself, which makes me a pretty good mechanic. Also makes me very familiar when there's something not right on my motorcycle.
Yeah.
And it keeps that old bike on the road, and it keeps me on the road. I love the vintage stuff, man. It's a lot of fun.
So I have a lot of friends that are into the vintage scene, and we always do the distinguished gentleman's ride here.
Yeah,
which is meant to be a vintage ride,
right.
But I rode it the last few years on a modern bike. I don't have a vintage bike anymore, or a vintage
I've got an extra
looking
one
bike
you can use.
Yeah, okay. Well, actually, the year before last, I borrowed my buddy's Bonneville because I was leading the ride, and I didn't want to be on a Yamaha Tracer, wearing my tweed vest and all that. But anyway,
That's funny.
yeah. But yeah, I know a bunch of guys that are into the vintage scene, and they actually the guest I'm going to have on next week, he buys these old vintage bikes off of like Facebook Marketplace for $1,000, or he does a lot of scooters too, like old Italian scooters and whatever.
Oh, those are cool.
Yeah, and
they have some style.
Yeah, and like you, he's pretty good at, because they are basic. You can. It's just a couple of things usually to get them running. People have them for years, and it doesn't work. I'm going to throw it away, and then, $200 later, he's got it running.
Yeah, there are 3 parts to your ignition system. Don't throw it away because it's not running.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, I dig them, and I actually almost kept my Bonneville when I got the Tracer a couple years back. I actually did keep it. I didn't almost keep it. I kept it for a while, but I just wasn't riding it enough, so I sold it to a friend.
That's no reason to get rid of a motorcycle. You're doing it all wrong.
Yeah, well, there's always budgetary concerns. I'm like, all right, I owe on this one as much as that one is worth. So if I sell that one, then I won't have a payment anymore. So that's pretty much what happened.
Yeah, but then you only have one motorcycle.
That's true. It's true.
Oh, by the way, I give terrible advice, in case you're wondering. In case your wife asks if she watches this, I give terrible advice. I'll fully admit that.
Well, I made a little video last week from our show where I was talking about how my wife doesn't know anything about bikes at all. And I was like, I was wondering if I just swapped out bikes, if she would notice if I got the same color, because I brought home a different colored one. But I was like, if I'd gotten another red bike, she'd probably been like, oh, looks a little different. I can't tell.
Now, so just for fun and over time and collecting parts, I have 2 motorcycles. And then I have 3 more tanks hanging in the garage. They're all different colors. So, you know, it gives me a little moving room. And if I
Yeah.
were to bring another one in, she would absolutely notice.
She would notice. Yeah.
She would absolutely notice. I think
Yeah.
she'd probably be happy if I got rid of one of those, but I don't need 2. But again, it is a real concern to be able to have a whole running platform. I can only ride one at a time. Although I did last year loan mine to a really good friend of mine who was having some other issues, and he rode it for several months, and that was great to be able to even to do that. So
Well, when I originally kept the other bike, I was like, well, I have all these friends that know how to ride but don't have bikes. So I was like, hey, come on over. Or
Right,
when
we
you,
can
when
go
you
ride
fly
together.
down, we can go ride together. And it never happened.
yeah.
It's hard to get people to commit to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we did go riding on my 2, which was fun because they're basically the same bike, a little different color,
Mhm.
and you get weird looks when you're. It's a really standard Japanese standard bike. I mean, there's nothing special about it. It's a little cruiser looking bike,
Yeah.
But they're clean, and they're stored inside. They're not rusty and weird, and they look good, and they kind of draw a crowd when you pull up somewhere because people either like you, they're like, man, my first bike was one of those, or just that it looks so cool.
Well, the vintage style has kind of come back around too.
Yeah.
Like all the brands have a version of it. And of course, Royal Enfield makes almost all vintage looking bikes. So
Yeah. It's either that or they look like a Mad Max killdozer kind of, which is fine too. I mean, that's if it's got 2 wheels and it runs, I'd probably be happy on it.
It's funny because when I got back into motorcycling, I think I can still remember it. You know how like a certain like place and time just gets seared into your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And I was getting on 275 here in St. Petersburg, coming from a job, and I happened to look over and there was a ramp coming on, and a guy was pulling on there, and he was on an Indian, like that new when the Indian kind of came back into place, like Scout Bobber 66, whatever they're called, and I was like, what is that bike? I mean, and I was like, I want one of those, and I that's how it started. And I just kind of like, oh, and then like 2 years went by, I didn't get a bike, but I was always online on the Indian website looking at them. Yeah. And then I started looking, well, if I'm going to tell my wife I want a new motorcycle, probably shouldn't buy a new motorcycle since I haven't ridden in so long. And I started looking at used bikes, and then I stumbled onto a Triumph, like a modern classic Bonneville, like a 2015 Bonneville. And I was like, that's a new bike? Like, I didn't know they made bikes look like that now. I had no idea.
And so it looks like the thing that your mind recognizes as
a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like on you can see on my thing here, I told AI, make me a logo and they basically made a Bonneville on there.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I didn't say make it a dirt bike or whatever. I just said make a bike, and it made that. So
after my wreck, my wife drew, and she's not an artist. I mean, she's not bad, but she's not an artist, not what she does for a living or anything. But she took a picture of my motorcycle and drew it, just like a line drawing of my motorcycle, just hanging in the other room. And it reminds me a little of that. It's kind of her own take on it. I kind of want to make some T-shirts out of it, but
yeah. So anyway,
and that's also AI. But my wife's name is Aubrey, so that would be Aubrey Intelligence.
That's funny. So I kind of think about my evolution, because I started off looking at that bobber, that Indian bobber, and thinking that's what I want. And then I stumbled onto Triumph, and then I was going to buy like a Honda 700 something generic-y ugly bike. Yeah. But I happened to drive by the Triumph dealership, and then I got sucked into there, and I bought a whatchamacallit, I bought a Street Cup first, which is like a little cafe racer looking bike, yellow with a fly screen and all that. So I went from that because it looked cool. And then the more I rode bikes, I realized, because I always thought adventure bikes were ugly, they look like snowmobiles,
right?
And I was like, why are all these guys riding adventure bikes, And then here it is. Now I'm riding an adventure bike.
Because it's adventurous.
Well, I think the reason why is because after a while, the the aesthetic appeal kind of wears off, and then you're
Right.
like, the adventure bike is fast, it is nimble, it's got luggage, it's got cruise control, it's got wind protection, it's got, it'll
Well,
go 250 miles on a tank of gas. You
well,
can take it off road if you want. So
you had asked me earlier, eh, like how I ride,
yeah,
and I got to write all these things. And after my wreck, I was looking to replace my motorcycle. I went and looked at a used, might have been an RS. I don't remember. It was a BMW.
yeah,
And, I mean, everything you just described, but to me, it looked pretty, I liked it. But, man, the center of gravity on that thing was so high. And I was still recovering anyway.
right.
So I kind of physically wasn't there to be able to handle much of anything really. But when I test rode it, it was just an awkward feeling. And I'm short, I'm 5'8", my
Yeah.
legs are short, and you almost have to like need a third person to stand that thing up at lights. And, it was just weird. So,
Right, right. Yeah, I often do that. I start talking to people and not realizing that everybody's 6'2", and so
right.
because I see these bikes and it never crosses my mind like, am I going to be able to flat foot it? Because I pretty much can flat foot any bike, and then
I can't.
yeah,
And I mean, most of them I can, and most street bikes and everything, but the adventure bikes specifically, and it's an uncomfortable feeling, especially when you've just had a wreck,
right,
and you've felt that feeling of no control, or at
yeah,
least the aftermath of it, and then you hop on this motorcycle and you're like, I can't stop and put my feet down without having to do two other things. It was weird. I'd love to be able to ride one though. It'd be fun, I think.
my cousin Brandon, who was with me, we both crashed on that Chirahalla, right? Like because we both hit the same patch of ice and both went down.
Oh, golly, that sucks.
And he rode a V-Strom for years, and he's quite a bit shorter than you. I think he's, he says he's tall for a hobbit. That's what he really says. He likes a joke, but he's pretty short. He's 5'2" or 3-ish maybe. I don't know. And I let him ride my Yamaha Tracer back when I had it, and he's a great rider. I mean, he's been riding bikes since he used to go to elementary school on the back of his mom's Ninja, so he's been a bike rider his whole life. But yeah, watching it, we stopped to get gas, and I was watching him trying to put the kickstand down, because he's got to lean on one side,
right.
and then that's the leg you would put the kickstand down with. So you basically have to get off the bike and then put the kickstand. I mean, you're holding up this 500-pound bike with the high center of gravity. So I give people that are short a lot of credit if they go ahead and take on those adventure bikes.
I've seen videos a time or two, and I just kind of laugh at them and move on. But
yeah,
like people sliding off and doing all the weird little machinations to make it happen.
Yeah, like I've seen them like side saddle into a traffic light and then just jump off, and.
I couldn't do it.
I would just get the shorter bike, I think. But.
Yeah, that's what I do. I have one that fits me, so I'm good with it.
Right.
Yeah, I'll take some more though. If anybody's got some old, Suzuki GSs that are, watching the podcast and they feel like they need a home.
So are you just a Suzuki guy now? You don't like?
Well,
because I think
I'm not just anything.
Because I think the vintage guys that I know, most of them are like Honda CB people. They like the old Honda CB 350s and 7 whatevers. And
I was watching I was listening to a podcast in the last few weeks, and they were talking about, mine's the 550, but the 750 I think was in the late 70s was kind of the breakout thing for Suzuki. They were competing against Kawasaki, and they were late to the game because all the other manufacturers had come up with their 4-stroke engines, and Suzuki was still trying to push the 2-stroke because of racing and whatnot.
Right.
And so I guess kind of 11th hour, so the story goes, they basically took that 2-stroke engine and turned it into a 4-stroke. A lot of the stuff like the roller bearings on the crank and the low pressure oil pump to the top of the head and all of these things that were just kind of cutting corners because it's stuff they had on the shelf and in stock to make that engine happen, turned out to be the thing that makes that engine indestructible. It goes and goes, just goes forever. You can't kill it. And I think that's what, and it's easy to work on. It's simple. The biggest pain is doing the valves, and frankly, they for years have just done weird things with valves and shims and all kinds of weirdness that would be easier to do other ways. But so I mean, I'm not a one thing or another. I've had Hondas and Kawasaki's, and I loved them all. But that's just the one I have now, and it's just so easy to work on. It hasn't really let me down, except when somebody ran over me. So,
yeah, well, you can't avoid that, I guess.
No, I mean, I don't know if I could or not because I don't remember.
Not with maintenance, anyway.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But it's been good.
I like to. So especially with the Yamaha, I always change my own oil and filter, and I did all that kind of stuff. They make it tricky because you got the warranty, and they're like, oh, you didn't have a licensed mechanic or whatever, but then they can't really do that. I don't know how they enforce it, but I actually kept a little book, and I wrote in the log, and I always use their brand of oil and their brand of filter, you know what I mean? And all that didn't really matter because I ended up just selling the bike anyway. So,
man, so for oil, I have tens of thousands of miles, and it's backed up by thousands of riders with hundreds of thousands of miles. I use T4 diesel oil in my motorcycle.
Yeah.
It's cheap. It's like $15 for a 5-gallon jug.
Oh, wow.
I was buying, and of course I have a wet clutch, and there are reasons why that oil works in that machine and it probably won't work in other ones. But man, I save so much money on oil changes because the oil's so cheap and the filters are cheap and, inexpensive. Let's call it inexpensive.
Yeah. Well, if you try to take your bike, you said you don't go to the dealer, and you're lucky because, they're getting like $300 now for the stupid 600-mile service or whatever. It's
the worst thing I have to do is tires, because I can't do those myself. I mean, I've done it. It's the worst job ever.
Yeah, it's a hard job.
And so I'll take the whole wheel off and take it to somebody to do the tire. And
do you have cycle gear there?
Yeah, well, sort of. Close enough. Yeah, there's one in Madison, which is within an hour of here, and I grew up out in the country, so
they'll do a tire change.
Hours close.
If you bring the wheel in, they do it for like $15 or whatever. So
it was like 50 when I took
that's
it
what I'm saying.
Cycle Gear.
Especially if you buy the tire from them, which their prices are about the same as everywhere. It's between 15 and like 25, depending if you're a member or not.
Right.
But
I do like Cycle Gear because there's a sad lack of like that sort of retail shopping space. I like to go look at the clothes and try on helmets, and you have to try on a helmet. I mean, they all fit so differently.
That's true. Yeah, I've had pretty bad luck buying them online. Unless then you feel bad if you go into Cycle Gear and you try it on, and then you find it cheaper online and you buy it. Then you're like,
right.
Yeah. So I try to buy it from them if I'm gonna try it on there. Yeah.
Well, hey, I know we had my buddy bought some boots from Cycle Gear, and then we went on a trip. Actually, we went down the Natchez Trace. I think Brandon just did that too. And somewhere along the way, that one of those boots really started coming apart and giving him problems. And we just found another Cycle Gear all along the way, and they took care of it. So that's kind of nice. You can't do that if you buy online.
Yeah, and they do stand behind their products pretty well. I've done the same thing. I brought in a pair of pants that I bought, and the seams were coming out, and I've worn them a bunch of times, but the guy's like, hey, they're within a year or whatever, and they just pulled out a new pair and gave them to me.
That's awesome. I'm actually losing a little weight now.
Now that your agent's back in the picture.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, everything has happened over the last few years. I really have gained a little weight, and it's frustrating because, again, because of the wrecks and stuff. I want to ride safe, and I want to ride geared up as well as I can, because when you come off of that motorcycle and you look at your clothes and you're like, that would have been me if it weren't for that gear. It really makes an impression. But for middle-aged guys that have a pot belly, and fortunately mine's a little less than it was, you can't go to Cycle Gear and buy clothes. They don't have it. All
Hmm.
of those clothes are designed for people like you. They're 6'2" and lean and whatever. And it's a little frustrating. And I
Yeah.
maybe the other option is to go to the Harley place, but I'm not interested in paying for the Harley Davidson label on something. And it's generally a lot more expensive.
They love their gear. They're very proud of it.
Yeah. Hey, well, they got to make money, I guess, but
Well, I think that's how they keep those
yeah,
dealerships in
right.
business. Yeah. They're basically giant retail stores with motorcycles.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
With giant motorcycles.
With giant motorcycles. Yeah. I've only ever ridden a few Harleys and for like very limited time.
Right.
So I don't really talk shit about them because, people love the Harleys and
No, they're fine.
I probably would enjoy one like on a long distance trip or whatever, but
They're fine. I don't have any
it's
just
just
qualms about anything.
no, not at all. I just think about moving them around. Like I can just lean up against my bike in the garage
Because they're
back it out.
big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a friend who I'm hoping to have on the podcast. She's same age as me and like started riding, in her early 50s or whatever, and she rides like an 800-pound Harley like everywhere. Small, small frame person, short, 120, 30 pounds, whatever, like, but she's had issues where, she stopped in a parking lot and the damn bike started to go and she ended up like breaking her arm trying to keep it up, like,
Oh gosh, are you serious?
yeah, she like broke her
Wow.
elbow and ended up getting surgery and stuff, and then got right back on it though, and but I
Well,
was
they're
with
okay
her
as
one
long as
day.
you keep them upright.
Yeah, upright. Yeah, I think she
broke
learned her lesson.
arm.
Because she tried to save it, and just the weight
Yeah.
just carried her right into the ground.
And you don't when that happens, you're not thinking about what's the best way for my body to handle this thing that's happening. You go all in, and then 3 days later you can't move. So
Yeah, I was on my my cross country trip, and I stopped on the PCH to take a photo, and I tried to put my bike up on the center stand, which was a dumb idea, because it was it was a gravel soft.
it just sinks into the gravel. Yeah.
Well, that's what happened. The right side sunk into there, and I had all the bags and everything, and the bike started going, and I started to try to save it, and then I thought, no, I need my back, so I just let it go, and just went around and picked it up. But yeah, it was
Man, let me tell you, I was in the garage the other day, because I have the two bikes. Whichever one I'm riding, I just pull into the garage, and the other one I have one of those. It's a motorcycle dolly. It's just a rail with a flip down ramp on either end and wheels and
couple of casters.
yeah, casters on each side and a little bump out for your kickstand. So was I putting it on or taking it off? I was taking it off. I was about to take that bike out and ride it when I'm not normally riding. And I forgot apparently to flip the ramp down, and the little ramp on the end, that is also the way that you lock the casters up.
Oh no!
So I started backing off, and the bike, moved under me a little bit behind me, and it didn't cross my mind what was going on until it fell, and yeah, and it was one of those things where like it didn't fall all the way, and it had some bags on it, so the garage kind of cramped. But so my whole body, though, I'm like, trying to hold this thing up and wrestle it up. And yeah, for like 4 or 5 days after that, I just couldn't move. I torqued every muscle in my body because it's almost a 500-pound motorcycle, loaded with gas and everything. And that's a lot. It's a lot for a little 5'8" guy like me that's fat, little short, fat guy.
So you sent me a thing. You're working on a project. Let's see, 360unbound.com.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I have a friend who has this kind of a lifelong thing of mine anyway, is just trying to help people. But I have a friend who is quadriplegic, and not too very long ago. And have you ever seen my personal one? It's a VR headset.
Yeah, I've got a PlayStation VR. Yeah.
Yeah. So I took that, and I had gone. I have a 360 camera, Insta 360 camera as well, and I ride a lot on the bike with it.
Right.
And so you can take the video off of that Insta 360 and load it into that headset, or you can go to YouTube. There's some 360 videos on YouTube as well, and you're there. You can sit,
you can turn around and look.
Turn around, above, below, every 360. And it was amazing and cool. And I took it to my buddy who is the quadriplegic. And well, I didn't take it to him. I said, "Man, have you ever had one of these on? It's amazing," because he's confined to a wheelchair. He's been that way for 30 years. And he said, I can't. He's got he can throw his arms around a little bit, but he doesn't have any motor control at all. And he said, I can't operate the controls. And I thought about it, and it's like, wow, that's really the limitation, because you have to have some motor control to be able to, that whole thing is a game system.
Right.
It's designed to be able to do things with your hands.
Yeah, you got to change the access with your thumb.
All kinds of things. Yeah. So it got me to thinking, and he's pretty bad off, quadriplegic. They're limited mobility folks that have more mobility than him, and then he's not quite as bad as like Christopher Reeve was. Remember, he had a respirator and couldn't move anything. But I thought about it a little bit and ended up with getting him a headset and just loading the video onto the headset. So you get rid of all of the trying to find things and stuff.
So you're just turning your head, basically.
Yeah. And you get, he can get his caregiver to turn it on and put it on. And he said it was just like riding a bike. He hadn't ridden a motorcycle in over 30 years. He's like, you can leaning into the curves and, doing all the stuff. And that was kind of the seed of it. So what I'm doing now is, actually, you can't see them, but I have a stack of headsets over here. We've been collecting donations the last few months, and I have several headsets that are destined for one of two things. Either for individuals like my friend Todd. Also, I'm looking at maybe how to find some summer programs or fall programs for mobility limited youth. I tried to target some older, like healthcare, memory care facilities, and they weren't interested. They're scared of everything, but kids are scared of nothing.
Right.
So, and the point of that is to bring immersive content. And that's content you can look around in, to people that wouldn't be able to access it otherwise. Either the content itself, like the motorcycle ride or a balloon, or there are a few other things, or the headset.
Right.
Because people don't think about that as being a kind of an accessibility device. They think of it as a game. If you showed somebody a VR headset, they're gonna think it's a game. Right. But there's more you can do with it, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Speaking of watching it, do you have any? You got any movies or TV shows you want to recommend? We like to talk a little bit of that on Binge Moto.
Yeah. No. Well, so my wife just started watching Fallout.
Oh, okay.
And it's pretty interesting. And, I'm a vintage guy. So, I mean, you see the stuff in my back. It's all 50s era.
It is.
Stuff.
It's based on a video game.
Yeah. It's based on a video game. So, yeah, probably I would push Fallout. And I'm old, and I just started watching Friends again. Don't tell anybody. It's the new stuff and the old stuff, but it holds up. Like the first couple of seasons anyway have been funnier than I thought they would be.
Yeah.
Because a few years ago I tried to watch Three's Company, and that was just awful. It's terrible. It was unwatchable.
Yeah.
So I'm cautious about watching old stuff, and I want to go see. I haven't seen it yet. The Phoenician Scheme.
Yes. So I was just talking about that with my son, because we're both huge Wes Anderson fans.
Yeah.
And like the the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah, that was good.
One of my favorite movies of all time. I found myself like every time it would come on TV, I'd just watch it again. I mean, I must have watched it like 20 times. And then one day my son just walked in, and he started watching it, and then he fell in love with it.
You're stuck.
Yeah, so now every time a Wes Anderson movie comes out, we're chatting it up.
I'm anxious to see that. We were supposed to go see it a week or two ago, and I don't know, the weather or something was bad, but I definitely want to get that in before it's gone, because I cannot imagine it's going to be in the theater.
Oh, that's what he was planning on. He told me he was planning on seeing it this weekend. I'm like, I think in 2 weeks it'll be on Amazon, so I'll just watch it.
Probably. Hey, and I'm not in any of those, so
that's true.
Yeah, but if I do end up with any new movies or TV shows, I'll certainly let you know.
Oh, that'd be cool. That'd be really cool. Yeah. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you, Tom, and thanks so much for coming on Binge Moto.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for letting me come and talk.
And if you haven't done it yet, I would like if you go to Binge Moto and like and subscribe and share it with a friend. And also you can look up Tom at Vintage Guy Vintage Bikes on YouTube. Is it also a Instagram handle and everything, or? Yeah. Okay. And you also have at Tom's 60-second meditations.
Yeah, that's another thing. You just look up Tom Blizzard, but Tom's 60-second meditations. So I was a photographer for a while, for a long time. And the mental health thing we talked about at the beginning of this was on the motorcycle. I would end up out in these beautiful places, and I don't want to stop and take an hour video. But I have friends in my life that can't get out and can't ride,
right.
Older relatives, people with health issues, like my friend Todd. And so I would stop and just take these 60-minute long, minute and a half long videos of places I happened to be. And at some point, I'm like, I just really need to start sharing these with everybody. Tom's 60-second meditations, that's what's that about. It's just, some pretty peaceful stuff to bring you back to wherever you think you need to be.
Right. All right. Well, sounds good. Take a look, and we'll definitely have you back on, talk more motorcycles in the future.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
Appreciate it. It's been great.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate it.
Go ride a motorcycle.